Hello everyone, my name is Akshaj Piri and welcome to episode number 7 of Python Mastery. Today in this video we'll talk about variables. What are variables, how to name them properly in Python, and something called dynamic typing, which makes Python feel almost too easy at first but has a trap that's worth knowing about. So here we are at the IP1B file called variables. First we'll create a variable name and assign a value to it. For example, I'm creating a variable called name and assigning a value called Akshaj. So what it does is that it takes the value on the right and assigns it or stores it under the variable on the left. So this equal to sign is telling Python to take the value on the right and store it on the variable name on the left. So if I want to see what this name variable has, I'm going to use a print function and write it. As you can see, Python goes to a memory, finds what's stored under each name and prints it. The variable is just a label that is pointing to a value. You can also update a variable. For example, if I have an age called 20 and I'll print the age. We see the age is 20 now, but I want to change the age of value to 19. So and when I print with the same variable name, I print age, you'll see it has changed 19. So the old value is gone, age now points to 19. So variables are not permanent, they hold whatever the last value you assign to them. Python has some rules that allow you to name variables, and if you break them you get a syntax error. So before your program even runs, so the rules are like names should be in whatever, you can't start with a number. For example, name, this variable is allowed, but this variable, let me see, this is not allowed, it's giving me a syntax error. So you cannot start with a number. Hyphens aren't allowed. For example, if I want to use like this would give me a syntax error. So numbers are not allowed, hyphens are allowed, and space are also not allowed. So you have to keep in mind, you can only start with a letter or an underscore. You cannot start with a number. You cannot put hyphens or space in between. And you also have to remember about something called uppercase and lowercase. You have to remember. So if I'm putting name Akshaj, okay, and if I put name Akshaj, so you see this and this are different. So if I try to print both these variables together, you'll see it has different values, not the same one. So you have to remember the Python is very case sensitive, so you have to remember the variable, the case of the variable. So these three rules you have to remember, and you can run Python easily. So now rules are what Python enforces. Conventions are what the entire Python community agrees to keep the code readable. So the big one is called snake case. So whenever your variable name has multiple words, you have to join them with underscores, all lowercase. For example, I want to write my variable called first name. Okay, so what I should not do is do something like this, because it has a space in it, and Python has a syntax where you cannot put space in a variable name. So what I can put is, I can put an underscore, as you can see here. This is a proper syntax. As you can see, this is the right syntax you have to put. There's something called camel case, that is a JavaScript convention, but we have to avoid in Python because both work, but Python won't stop you from using camel case. Camel case is like this. This is camel case, and this is called snake case. Python won't stop you from using the camel case, but if you're writing Python, the convention is snake case, and all conventions matter because they make everyone's code look familiar. So whenever you read someone else's Python code and it's in snake case, you don't have to think about it. The consistency really matters. So there's another category in Python that has some names that Python won't let you use, and these are called reserved keywords. These are these are the words that Python has already claimed for its own syntax. We'll run this in the terminal. Import keyword. This is a package called keyword, and I'll run this here. Import keyword, and I'll try to print all the list of Python, all the keyword list Python has. So you see false, none, true, and, as, break, these all are keywords you cannot use as variable names. Python uses words to build the language itself, so you won't use as variable names because they have a proper particular function which are used for. So for example, if I choose the keyword if and I assign it to integer 5, so when I run it, it'll give a syntax error because it has an invalid syntax because it's a keyword. So for example, I put the same value, assign it to an variable name called age, it'll work. So you have to keep in mind, you don't need to memorize at all. Your editor will highlight them in a different color. For example, as I had a red underline, it was pretty obvious that I cannot use this variable name. So that's a signal. So if your word you're trying to use as a variable name turns to a keyword color, you have to rename it. And we'll talk about the last concept, and it's a big one. It's called dynamic typing. In some languages like C++, Java, C, when you create a variable, you have to declare what the type of data it holds. An integer value variable can only hold integers. A string variable can only hold strings. But Python does not work in this way. For example, I have a variable name called x and I'll assign it to a value of 10. So when I try to print the type of the variable x, you see it gives me an integer because 10 is an integer. And in the same way, if I put another called y and I put this in strings, and when I try to find the type of y, it'll give me a string because it's in double quotes. So integer, then string, then float, they all have this have a variable. So Python figures out the type of variable from the value you assign it and the moment you assign it. So you never have to declare it. That is dynamic typing. That is why Python feels so fast to write. Less ceremony and more code. But there's a trap. For example, I have a variable name called age and I have assigned a value called 10. For example, 10. And what I want to do is I want to perform an arithmetic operation. Age plus 1. It gives me a type error. Age looks like a number, but it's not. It's a string 10. It happens, it's a text which happens to contain digits. So Python won't automatically convert it. And the plus operator means something different for the strings than it does for numbers. And that is concatenation. And we'll talk about it in the later episodes. And Python isn't going to guess what you mean it. So what you can do is that I have the same age variable and I have the same value, and now what I can do is that I print function, but I have to keep in mind by using a converter called age plus 1. So as you can see, first one had only the variable. Now I'm converting the variable to an integer. So no matter what it has, if it's a string, it will convert the string to an integer data type, and now I can properly run it. So dynamic typing gives you flexibility, but it also makes you responsible for knowing what type of variable type you hold. The responsibility doesn't go away just because Python does not force you to declare other types upfront. So that was the video, and now we'll do a recap of what we have learned till now. We have learned that assignment uses the equal to sign, which stores a value under a name. Names can use letters, numbers, underscore, but cannot start with a number, and no spaces or symbols. Python is case sensitive, so small case name and capital case name are all different variables. And the convention is snake case for multi-word names, and reserved keywords are off limits and you cannot use them, but your code editor will highlight them, so it's not a big of an issue. And dynamic typing means Python infers a type of value from the value, and you're still responsible for knowing what type of variable type you're working with. So that was the video, guys, and if you liked it, thank you for watching, and give a like, channel, subscribe. Thank you.